You're listening to Trek FM.
Welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's 50th anniversary rewatch project, where the hosts of the network get together and discuss for you all 729 episodes and movies in the Star Trek franchise, beginning with Enterprise and ending with Star Trek Beyond. And joining me today is a good friend of mine. Now, Mike, here, before we get started, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you want to die?
I mean, I guess maybe at some point.
At some point? Okay, well, today we're going to talk about how I can prolong your life. So
that's cool.
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
All right. Sounds good.
First, though, we got to talk about some spooky stuff by some dude, Bryan Fuller.
Yeah.
Is that like Ferris Bueller?
Something like that.
So some parts are breaking down on Deep Space Nine, and they have to go to an exact duplicate of Deep Space Nine called Empok Nor in order to take some parts. However, it's been abandoned by the Cardassians, and there are booby traps, and there's crazy zombie Cardassians killing everybody.
Yeah, we should probably note that that's the name of this episode, Empok Nor.
Oh, yeah, and it's called Empok Nor.
Yeah.
Yes. And for those that don't know anything about Deep Space Nine used to be called Terok Nor. So I'm guessing Nor means station?
Could be.
Cool.
Yeah. So, this is an interesting episode. You can definitely see Bryan Fuller, who wrote the story for this episode. This is the second thing he ever wrote that was produced. Definitely, likes the horror elements and everything, and I think that they do a pretty good job with that. I think it's a pretty inventive bottle show. It's one of those bottle shows where they're like, we're going to go to this station that we've never seen before. And, you can use all the same sets that you use, under normal circumstances because it's identical to Deep Space Nine. You just change the lighting a little bit and it totally works. And you can tell that the station is broken down because in space it's tilted, because that's how things work in space. When they break down, they tilt.
Somehow. I know, I hate that when the Enterprise was broken down and it's like rotating or upside down or whatever. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's really broken when it's doing that, that's for sure. Yeah. My biggest problem with this episode is why have they not released a Kotra set for me to buy and learn and play yet? I mean, we got 3D chess out there. Why can't I buy a Kotra set, Mike? Let's get on that.
I'm sure it'll be coming immediately after the Deep Space Nine Blu-rays are released.
Oh, I can't wait.
That's
they've already started working on it. They did Chain of Command Part 1.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well. I like this episode a lot. I think this is really cool. It's a neat concept. It's dark. Like, it's one of the darkest episodes we have for Deep Space Nine. Like, it's an out-and-out horror episode. And, Garak, and Andrew Robinson as Garak is just, at his peak in this episode. He's got some great Garak lines there. That one line when he's like, oh, that's a shame. And the worst part is, this isn't a coil spanner. And he stabs him, and he's like, it's a coupler, or a flux coupler. And I don't know, it's just a great Garak line. Like, it's totally something that he would say, because that's the worst part of it, not the fact that he's dead. It's that he's got the wrong tool.
It's interesting because Garak is an interesting character. Characters like Garak on Deep Space Nine allow them certain opportunities which a lot of the other shows don't have, where they are kind of like malleable in terms of what you can do with them. Like, you can have Garak kill someone and then just sort of be like, whatever, he was not mind controlled, but he was kind of messed up with the whatever it is, which is, making him act, all aggressive. And it's not the end of the world. Whereas, like, if you were to have, like, O'Brien kill a guy, I think people would be like, no, that's not okay for one of our main Starfleet, crew members. But, a secondary character who's a Cardassian, you can have him kill some people and get away with it, And
then have no punishment for him as well. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
No repercussions.
Right.
So, yeah, it's kind of a weird conclusion to it because, he did kill a bunch of people, and it's like, well, it isn't really your fault. It's like kind of like Data, too, when Data goes all crazy on the Enterprise. It's Data, and he's a robot, and whoops, something flipped some switch in his programming and made him do all these weird things. So it's not really his fault. So he's kind of the one on Next Generation that's allowed to get away with things in the same kind of manner.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's a good episode. It's a good horror episode. Some of the secondary characters get to shine, and there's some legitimate cool moments and freaky moments, like when that runabout blows up, and you're like, well, what are they going to do now? So yeah, I definitely think it's good.
One thing I would have liked to see more, and they didn't really do this in the literary universe. Like we went back to Empok Nor in some of the books, and there was a Starfleet Corps of Engineer short novel that they went back to Empok Nor. But this opens up a whole new aspect that you could explore, and it's like, well, there's not just one Terok Nor, there's an Empok Nor. Well, how many other whatever Nors are out there, right? Like there's probably dozens of them out there, right? Because how many star bases are there for Starfleet? So it's kind of something that we've never thought about before, but it's not something that's illogical. Like it totally makes sense that there would be multiple ones of these, and this is the first time it's come up way in season 5, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that the Magnificent Ferengi is a better episode than this one, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say it probably is.
But they both take place in Empok Nor, which is kind of funny.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Should we move on to our next episode in the cards?
Sure.
So Jake wants to make his dad happy by buying him a Willie Mays rookie card, but he has no money, so they have to do a bunch of trades with a bunch of different people to do a bunch of different things. And at the end, they learn the true meaning of Christmas.
Yes. No, I mean, that's totally true. And that's one of the things which I think works so well about this episode is it's very sort of like light and fluffy and very much sort of like is it called the Gift of the Magi? Is that what it's called?
Something like that.
All right, cool. I think of it in terms of Bert and Ernie, honestly, but whatever. It's really good. That sort of like idea of and making everyone happy through an attempt to just make your dad happy. And I really love the tone of this episode. It's spot on. Like at that convention that we were at, I think it was I forget who was saying it, but they were saying like, oh, well, Deep Space Nine, they're not good at comedy because they don't have any comedy directors, so every time they try to write comedy, it doesn't work. The direction in here, which is by Michael Dorn, by the way, completely nails the comedic tone. It is spot on. And the performances are great. The script is amazing. And I just love it. Part of it is sort of like I can relate to it very much on a personal level because my dad loves baseball as much as Ben Sisko does. My dad, for years and years before Deep Space Nine ever existed, had a baseball which he kept on his desk at work, still does to this day. And now because of that, I have a baseball on my desk at work. It's just, like one of those things. And, the idea of like a Willie Mays baseball card. I mean, my dad honestly would not care less about that, but the idea of there being like this sort of baseball piece of memorabilia that would just make him happy, and sort of like help alleviate his stress is pretty cool. And the way that it sort of like trickles down to everyone else on the crew is great. And one of the things which I think is like really, really great about this episode is that even though it is a lighthearted episode, it almost does the same thing for the audience that it does for the characters on this show. It is sort of like a release valve for this tension which has been building up. And we're about to get into the war. We're about to get hardcore into it. And here we're able to take a breath right before we get into the really heavy stuff. And also, while doing that, they are able to completely tie it into the storyline. They don't lose momentum at all because it's all based on the idea that everyone is drained from what's been going on in terms of the conflict. And then also we get the return of Kai Wynn, and this is where I see that, I was wrong about Rapture, and that it actually does play in, quite a bit, because, it's all sort of based on that episode in terms of like the B plot, and the fact that that's the B plot is like really fascinating, and the potential for signing this non-aggression pact, which is where the idea is brought up before it comes into play in the finale, next week. And then also on top of that, you have the Vorta and everything, and what's his name, Jeffrey Combs' character, Wei Yun. Yeah, he comes in and he's there, and he's obviously, the worst of the worst in terms of villains, and yet here he gets a chance to be comedic, all that stuff, and the guy who ripped off the dude's face and put it on himself in Voyager, and also just on another sort of like semi-personal note or whatever, this is the episode with the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy, which, by the way, is the name of my friend Josh's podcast, the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy. He's the guy who founded the Delta Quadrant podcast, and through my friendship with him, I was led into the world of Star Trek podcasting, which through many, many steps led me here, but it all goes back to Josh and his podcast, the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy, which, by the way, was not a Star Trek podcast.
This is a great episode. I love it. Like, everything that you've said there, I agree with 100%. This is in my top 10 D Space Nine episodes, I'm sure. Like, it's so fun, and the timing of this episode coming out is so perfect. Like you're saying, it's a release valve, but you don't lose any of that momentum with the B plot. It is hilarious. There's a lot of great comedy in this. The way that Jake gives that guilt trip to Nog is perfect, And, well, if you don't need money, then you don't need my money. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I think it's perfect. And again, it leads into this next episode with this introduction of the non-aggression pact. So it keeps the momentum going along. It keeps everything going along. It's great. So I can't add much more than what you said there, for sure.
And what's the line? Is it ions and Geigers and bears? What's the first thing? It's not just lions.
It's ions and Geigers and bears. Yep.
Oh my! I mean, they quote Wizard of Oz in an episode of, and they're going to take that to another level in the next episode. But here, that's pretty impressive. This is people talk about like Deep Space Nine being the darkest show, and it is, but it's also the funniest show. And Deep Space Nine is the only Star Trek show which could ever get away with doing something like that. You'll never find that in any other Star Trek show.
Yeah,
and that's why it's the best.
The finale too, when Sisko's doing his captain's log right at the end, and you go one by one to see how happy all these people are. You're right; it makes you, as an audience member, feel happy watching this episode because you love these characters so much, and they've gone through so much this season, and to see them all win. Yeah. Like, there's no losses in this episode.
Even Wei Yun wins.
Like, totally, it's perfect. Everybody wins in this episode, and it's so much fun, and I love this episode a lot.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Anywho, I don't have anything else I have to say right before, I want to get back to my device that excites my cells because they're getting bored. But where can we find you on the network?
You can find me right here on Trek FM doing Stage 9 with John Mills, where we talk about the people who make Star Trek. And you can also find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K.
And you can find me here on the network with new episodes of Melodic Treks, which is all about the music of Star Trek, as well as I've been on some recent episodes of Standard Orbit and Warp 5. And you can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Mutala, or every once in a while poking my head up in the Babel Conference. So please join us again tomorrow as we finish up Season 5 with Call to Arms, and we finish up Voyager Season 4 with Scorpion.
Season 3.